Hi, Andy Grant here. I've been up since 2 a.m. It's now about 7:30 p.m. And I talk a lot about being authentic. And as the founder of Real Men Feel, I want to model and be an example for what it's like to be a man willing to feel. So I knew this video had to be made. I didn't know when it would be made. So that's the backstory. Early this morning, my stepmother died. It wasn't a surprise. She was under hospice care, so we knew this day was coming, but it did come quicker than expected. And even knowing it's coming and welcoming that it comes to give her the a rather quick and painless end that she desired. Even wanting that, there's still the emotional punch and the shock that when it really happens. Because I think this is just the second death I've been through. This is the second time I've seen a newly deceased body. She'd been with my dad for about 45 years, and they actually met when my parents were still married, but that's another story. I never lived with her on a full-time basis. On a few occasions, I lived with her for a week or maybe 10 days at a time. Nothing more than that. And I never really considered her to be my stepmother. I don't think I ever introduced her that way until I got married, and I had to. How do I introduce this person? Because by that point, she and my dad had gotten divorced, but were living together, and that's a whole other story. But when I was first introduced to Marilyn, I hated her. Because at the age of 5, 6, 7, I still hoped and believed that my parents could get back together. So there was nobody that my dad was going to bring into my life as his new partner, as his new wife, that I was going to accept. That just wasn't something I was going to be cool with at all. And I didn't want anyone to think that she was my mom. I didn't want to be seen with her. I wouldn't go places if I was with the both of them. I stayed far away. I treated her like crap. Remember, she would often ask me, my favorite foods. Then she would make it, and I would say that how awful it was, how it doesn't compare to my mom's cooking, and this dish just sucks. Multiple times, I'd see my dad just on weekends, and that usually meant there'd be like a lot of chores and helping around their house and stuff. And often we'd go to the dump, and I'd say, can't we leave her here? And it wasn't sly or below my breath. It was loud and out proud and well within earshot, and just said to hurt her. But she always treated me well, beyond well, better than my wise ass self deserved. I think I might have been in my 20s before I thought, she might be okay. And it was in my 30s before, I genuinely liked her, and we had an actual, authentic adult relationship. Her expertise was early childhood development, and talking to her and actually I did some interviews with her for some of my books, and it just gave me this cool witness perspective of my upbringing and how I was at different ages. And my dad was so worried about her not being seen as my mom or a replacement. She wasn't allowed to say anything. She wasn't allowed to ever talk to me alone. She could never say that, to tell my dad that maybe you're doing this a little incorrectly, and there was anything about me was off limits for her to have an opinion of or to share about. But despite me being a jerk, despite me trying to drive her away, I said we ended up being really close as adults, and it was really cool. She turned me on to the Beatles. She turned me on to cats. as pets, not the play. She opened her home to me at times when I had nowhere else to go. She was extremely generous with everything that she had. She sent my wife and I on drug mule trips to Europe on multiple occasions. But that's another story. Perhaps most amazing of all, she not only put up with, but actually took tremendous care of my dad through multiple rounds of alcoholism and manic depression and affairs. She made sure that there was order and care as dementia has taken over his life and as he's battled cancer. She took every reasonable step and beyond to make sure that he was taken care of, that he'd always be okay. And we all thought that he'd die first. But there's a line about, man makes plans and God laughs. And so that's where we are today. So I never had an evil stepmother. I at times was an evil kid, but it wasn't because I was some innate asshole. It was because I was human. So I really appreciate how we were able to connect as adults and how great she got along with my wife. Lori's never had an issue considering her to be anything but, my second mother-in-law. And she always often talks about how lucky she is. She has two mother-in-laws that she actually likes. So, no FUs here. Thank you, Marilyn. I love you.